Welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for a very special interview today with a current cast member of Saturday Night Live, and that is with the one, the only James Austin Johnson is joining us on the show today. I'm so excited to talk to Jaj about his experience at the show. So, joining us as well, we have one James coming in, so you got to have James as the co-pilot for this interview, and that is James Stephens. James, how are you?
I am so excited, John. Big day here with this interview. Big week here on the SNN. So yeah, let's get going on this interview. James Austin Johnson, Jaj.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to him. Sincerely, one of my favorite cast members currently on the show. I love getting to see, him continuing to do more and more on the show. I have to think one of the most talented cast members that SNL has truly ever had. I mean, you think about all the 150 something, whatever it is that they're at now, and I'm sure when he auditioned for the show, they were like, "Oh, we got gold here. Not just a great impressionist, but can do a lot of really great things at Saturday Night Live." So for me, there's so much I want to get into with him just to talk about. I wish we had hours, but I know we're going to have some fun today talking to Jaj. So are you excited, James?
Yeah, look, it's exciting because he can do so much, and he could probably stay on the show as long as he wants. Looking at it, this is third season as a cast member. I mean, it feels like it's a lot longer in the sense that he's just delivered so much in such a short, compressed amount of time. His first year on the show, he was in cold open after cold open. His impressions are outstanding. It's really going to be a great time to just kind of get to know him and ask him some of those things that we've just been sort of talking about as fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as a fan of Saturday Night Live, I've always been the most interested in interviews with people who are known for their impressions because they dive so deep into character that sometimes we don't get to know the real them on the show. So to me, these are the interviews that I look forward to the most. So I'm excited to see, get to know him a little bit better and, whether he was a fan of the show or not. I've heard some whispers over the last couple of years about how much he loves certain cast members and stuff like that. So I really want to ask him about that and talk about his ascension at the show. So this is truly our final season 49 podcast. We're going to wrap up the season with JAJ. So what a fun time to do that here. So looking forward to it. And I hope that all of the listeners enjoy. And James and I will be back after the podcast to talk about it a little bit and tell you what's coming up here this week on the SNN, because we got some big stuff happening on this podcast. So here we go. Without further ado, our conversation with James Austin Johnson. Yes, that is right. So we are here with the one, the only James Austin Johnson, coming off his third year at Saturday Night Live. James, how are you?
That's right. Hello, everyone listening to the Saturday Night Network. Hi, John. Hi, James. I'm happy.
Hello, James.
I'm chill. I'm good. I'm on a good dosage. I'm running a lot. I'm getting a lot of water. Been playing with my son. I had a bath the other night, but I bleached the tub again because it just didn't feel clean enough, and so we're gonna get back into that. I'm sorry it wasn't a greener abrasive chemical that I used. I have white vinegar, but I went with the bleach instead just because I wanted to make sure that bath was good to go for the summer. So here I am.
There you go, John. Your questions about the bath have already been answered.
Crossing
I'm a
those
big
off
bath
the list.
guy. I'm a big bath guy, and
crossing those off the list.
Yes,
you were just at Big Slick, right? So I'm sure that was a lot of fun for you over the weekend.
I was just at Big Slick. Heidi asked if I'd like to do it, and she's she does it every year, and this was the first year that sort of my son was, I think, old enough for us to leave for a couple days to go do something, just mom and dad. Nice. And we
Awesome.
had a great time. We raised a bunch of money for the Children's Hospital in Kansas City, and
record-breaking amount. Yeah.
A record-breaking amount. I got to meet Weird Al. I've been trying to make that happen
Nice.
He's the best
for decades. So that was very cool. So
that's so awesome.
Yeah, and I got to got some more FaceTime with Heidi and Punky and Ego and Molly and Devin, which are some people that I never get to see. That's a joke. I hang out with those people all the time, but to hang out with them, in Kansas City, that was a new experience. Yeah.
Awesome. I do want to ask you before we get into the questions, something that I've always wanted to, which is, how do you like to be called? Because I know that like we call you James from like the show, but I think your family calls you Austin, and then we've like adopted JAJ as an acronym, but I think people call you Jaj. So like, what do you want the fans to call you?
I would say Jaj is the number one preference.
Okay.
Pronounce my initials phonetically. That is what my wife's nickname for me has been for 10 plus years. And that is the nickname that, without me even pushing it, that just happens. I've been in like every house I've moved into. Anyone that is like, anyone that gets close to me naturally starts calling me Jaj without me even introducing that into the lexicon. So, you know, Jaj is good for me. And then James. I'll tell you one thing I don't like is James Austin. If you're going to say the first two words, just say James Austin Johnson. It's like, I don't know if you guys have ever had a housemate who was like, here's what I'm going to do. Instead of taking out the trash, I'm going to take the trash bag up, I'm going to cinch it tight, and then I'm just going to set it in the kitchen floor. Not going to take it out, not going to change the liner. You know what I mean? You're doing half a chore if you say James Austin. Just go ahead and jump off the cliff, James Austin Johnson, or just James is fine. But Jaj, I would say, Jaj is what I answer to probably the most.
All right. So you hear that? Okay, so we're gonna go with Jaj. So Jaj.
But Jenna Rossitano says James to the floor.
Okay.
James to the floor.
Yeah.
So
noted.
she says James, whatever.
All right, Jaj. So I got to ask you, first time we got to have you on the podcast, such a privilege. So happy to talk to you. And I would love for the SNL fans to hear about your history with the show growing up, because I have heard that, you know, there's cast members that you've really admired. And I'd just love to know, like, what was your experience like watching Saturday Night Live before you got on the show? How often did you watch it?
I mean, I think for years I just heard other kids talking about it at church. And it was just this legendary thing that you would hear about on Sunday mornings as older kids were like, did you see the thing that happened on the show? So I'm the youngest of three boys. So it's just always been kind of I'm the little kid and am I allowed to watch SNL? So I think some of my earliest memories of watching it are like, turning it on, knowing that we're supposed to be going to bed because we have church in the morning, and trying to watch a little bit of it before I'm caught and have to turn the TV off. I have a memory of turning it on and then crawling under the bed and watching it from under the bed, thinking that my mom might come in, see a TV on in an empty room, and then go look for me somewhere else, and I'll continue to watch the show. You know, that sort of that ninja like ruse, that shinobi ruse would let me watch a little bit more of the show. So you know, Saturday night, Sunday morning, the show ends in Sunday morning basically. So coming from a very Sunday morning oriented family, it was a little bit of a negotiation to watch SNL, but my most distinct early memories of it are probably the 2000 election.
Okay.
Bush v. Gore, and I remember doing, because I'd done impressions a lot to impress adults. Again, I'm the youngest child of three boys, so you have to like get older people's attention. You're not around people your own age because you're the youngest. So you're around people your oldest brother's age is like the bottom of a family like that, right? So I'm learning impressions to like get people's attention, you know, Jar Jar Binks, this guy at school, etc. And I remember thinking that Daryl Hammond's Al Gore voice was really funny, even though I had no clue who Al Gore was. No clue who Al Gore was, only that my dad had absolute contempt for him. So I knew he was evil. I knew that Al Gore was some sort of supervillain who was masterminding some kind of freeze ray or something like that, a Doctor Doom-esque character. So people really thought the voice was really funny when Daryl Hammond would do Al Gore. So I remember learning Daryl Hammond's Al Gore, doing it to adults at church, and them just losing it. And I'm like, who is this like who is this boring man from the newspapers, and why is doing his voice so funny to people who are way older than me? And so I just started to cultivate that as a skill to get people's parents at church and stuff to think I was funny. So
I got to ask, since you mentioned Daryl, because he has talked about you on his podcast. You guys have had a chance to meet, right? As the show's announcer, he's been there, right?
We've met a couple times. Yeah, sometimes I know he does some of his work. He comes in to do stuff at 30 Rock sometimes, and maybe he works remotely sometimes. But I haven't gotten as many opportunities to talk to him as you might think. But
he's kind of stealth, isn't he?
He kind of we're on different schedules. I'm always running around when the show's in production. So, but I have gotten to talk to him a couple times, and he's very kind. He's kind of, I think, a still waters run deep person, where I'm sure there is hours of conversation I could have with him if we ever got the chance. I don't know. I don't really know how it is that you end up getting to like hash it out with different people, but it just happens naturally the way that the comedy scene works. It's like, you cross paths with certain people and you can really get into it with them. And Daryl, I don't see as much, but some of the others I've been able to talk to really extensively. I'm always sort of spelunking into SNL's past, talking to old cast members, picking their brain.
Yeah.
That's why we asked the question, Judge, because
Yeah.
I know you're a fan of the show, and we appreciate that, getting to see like a fan get on the show. So it's so cool.
Yes, I kind of always wanted to be on the show, and I've always been, like a fan of it, and so yeah, I'm always it's always fun when cast members either host or come by for a cameo or something, and I get the chance to talk to them. Once a year I'll call up Dana Carvey and we'll talk for a while. And I talk to Bill and Fred a lot. I'm a big Bill and Fred head personally, and so that's one of the best things about the job, is just like, every once in a while hitting up a producer and being like, can I have this person's number? I just want to talk to them.
That's right. So this was your first season as a repertory player.
Yeah.
How would you evaluate this season? I mean, are you happy with how this season went? I mean, in my opinion, you were just dominating. And, was there anything that you were unhappy with? Anything, what are the best and the worst?
Oh man. Yeah, it was, it's sort of like, I have just kind of been running top speed, both at the show and like career wise, outside of the show as well, and in my personal life. Kind of like absolutely everything in my life got cranked up to 100 miles an hour when the show started. And my wife was 6.5 months pregnant when I was auditioning, and she was 7 months pregnant when I started the show. I had all 4 of my grandparents die within like a 1.5 year period since like right before the show started. And it just like, I had like a lot of losses in my family, and we just kept flying back every hiatus for funerals for the first 2 seasons. That's what I remember. And then I had a newborn halfway through my first season. So I'm experiencing just like time and space and memory in this big omelet fashion. Just everything is scrambled and scattered and smothered and covered. And I'm like, I do my best to like, sometimes I will look at the SNL fandom website, because the fandom wikis, which are full of ads and disgusting to pick through, but it's the only like public database of some of this info. I'm sure there's NBCU stuff I could get in there if I could remember any of my passwords to my NBC emails. But sometimes I will go look at the SNL fandom wiki just to see like dates written down and be like, oh yeah, that's right, Rami Malek. What? Okay, so we met with this OBGYN in this neighborhood on that day. So like I can't remember when anything happened, like when any sketches happened or anything like that, because my whole life is just a big old plate of fried rice, and I'm doing my best to just like pick out the little peas and carrots when I can. But this season was just more. That's what it felt like. This season was just more of everything, you know, like in your first season, you're just kind of trying to establish some like corner for yourself and set up shop in a way. And so my first season was definitely like I was doing cold opens a lot. I was doing impressions of politicians a lot. And that was like kind of my entry into the flow of a week. You know, I remember I mostly remember like being there really late blocking cold opens, because cold opens either block dead last on Fridays, or sometimes there's not even a script until Saturday, just because the news is moving so fast. And so I was just trying to learn how to help get my voice into cold opens, because I was so that was my first season. And then my second season was when I really started writing with Andrew Dismukes a lot, and we kind of started it's like I went from aiming at the very beginning of the show to like aiming at the very end of the show. That's when Andrew and I started writing our chaos, our like Texas chaos stuff, which would be more in that sort of 10-1 space, that post update space. So
King Brothers Toyota, for example.
King Brothers Toyota, just you're writing stuff that's just born from our shared love of insane comedy, but also the things that Andrew and I work on together. Also, we also seem to be covering a like wholesome small town area of the show. A lot of very like razor focused
voice to that community, that right?
Yeah,
They pick up on it because it's real.
yeah, red state nerd loser kind of genre sketches. And so Andrew and I got really into that in 48, and that's kind of, I started easing more into all of the responsibilities and roles of the show, because my son could walk around and say things and eat solid food. It's sort of I was able to think about different things at the show, because at home we were starting to like get a handle on how to raise a child in New York and all that stuff. So season 49, I know this is a really long answer, but season 49 kind of just felt like, all right, now that I figured out the beginning of the show and the end of the show, let's learn how to do everything else. And so I feel like just season 49 was like the volume was just cranked up. I was running around a lot this season. This one was, I feel like this one was just like, it was just a lot. It was a lot more of everything. I'm like trying to write cold opens on Friday nights and going back and forth between the pre-tape studio and the TV studio. I'm playing more hosts and playing more husbands and dads, and just kind of like playing more of my weird character stuff that I write, and trying to play more music on the show, trying to play guitar more live on TV in front of millions of people, which guitar is not my number. It's not the easiest thing to do. And there's a challenge to myself to be like, you know what, if my character's playing guitar in a sketch, I want to be plugged in. I want to be playing live. And so it was just more challenges to myself and more like responsibilities and more running around. That's what 49 felt like. So
it's very fascinating.
yeah, my personal assessment. I hope it looked good. I hope people thought I had a good season, because I just remember I just remember running myself raw. My
Right.
best episode, I have a full blown sinus infection. That's my story this season. I can talk about that.
Which episode is that?
Like my personal choice, I think, for my best episode, just because I was doing a bunch of different stuff, which is my favorite thing, is when I'm doing a million like different things.
Variety, yeah.
Timothy Chalamet. Let's see. I did a Trump cold open where I did one of those time freeze Trump cold opens where I talk about all the GOP candidates. So I had a big silly kind of metaphysical Trump piece. I was Emperor Palpatine type guy in Giant Horse. Yeah. I was Rick Rubin in the SoundCloud rapper guy that Timmy does. And then
Werner Herzog, I think you were
Werner Herzog and the Britney Spears thing. And I think there were like 3 more things that were cut before air that were just as disparate in their approach and needs. So that's an episode where I look back and I'm like, I was fully sick, fully losing my voice, fully had a sinus infection. I think I was also doing a bunch of crazy VOs on that episode where like I wonder if anyone notices that I do a lot of VO on the show.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, we do. We count all that stuff.
I do VO in things that I'm acting in. Like my character will be done talking, and then my VO will take over. Man, I'm really like spreading my tendrils everywhere into this thing.
We do track those things so that we can keep proper, like we keep all the stats for you. So
oh man.
So we have that. But I want to ask you, because you mentioned something that was really interesting to me. It's something that we noticed on the outside, that you were playing a lot of these dad roles or game show host, or maybe somebody who carries a sketch from one point to another. And I was curious myself, coming into the season, you were playing both the current President Biden and former President Trump. And now that Biden, that role was transitioned over to Mikey.
Yeah.
Did that have something to do with allowing you to venture into other roles on the show? Or it was really more of a development of your role on the show in general that led to you venturing out?
Interesting. I mean, we're sort of we're writing things for ourselves, and things are just being written with us in mind. Different writers are just throwing you into stuff and casting you into things. So there's this Seinfeld quote where he said, when you're starting stand up, that the audience tells you how you are funny. Right? Like you can only get better at stand up. You can't practice it at home. You have to be up in front of people and you try things, and what gets a response is your little guidepost in the shifting sands of the creative process. That's what you work toward, is like, oh, that got a big laugh, I should follow that. I was a straight stand up for years. I thought impressions were corny. I didn't want to do impressions in my act. And I started doing Louis C.K. a lot on stage, and it would just get such a big response that I would kind of like go, all right, I guess I was the only person on this show who did an impression, and it was like this big pop. Maybe I should start exploring that more in my act. So, at SNL, over the course of a few seasons, sort of the writers have a similar thing. They're almost like an audience where they're noticing kind of what you're getting a good response with in the show, what you're getting a good response with at the table. So I think it just, over the course of a few seasons, people just started putting me in certain types of roles based on what I can hit with. And I love doing announcers. Obviously, I do a lot of VO on the show, but I love doing like spokespeople and live announcers. That's like a game I've been playing in the bathroom mirror since I was like 5 years old, doing commercials for a shampoo bottle that I'm holding in my hand. And one of my first like bits I would do to adults is I would just say this entire like 3-minute infomercial that used to play on Cartoon Network all the time, for this like bag that rolled out with a lot of pockets on it. And I would just repeat the entire thing. It rolls up and rolls out and displays everything at your fingertips. And now it can be yours for 3 payments of $19.90. It was like, and I memorized the whole phone number, and I would just corner adults and just say this entire commercial at them. So I've always loved just spouting a long string of technical information. I just think that's funny, just how that's somebody's job, is to just say every little piece of how this Ford F-250 is financed and when you can buy it and how many pistons it has and all that kind of. So I think just
especially the fast read at the very end, right?
Yeah. So I think that people just sort of spotted that I'm good at kind of that presentational thing, and that not just that, but that I relish doing it. So that's just becomes one of your little things that people go, oh, this is a James thing. You know, if we need somebody listing the prizes that you might win if you answer this question correctly in a game show sketch, you know, James is good at doing that announcer thing. So it just,
I can
you just
see that. And there's a little bit of, if you, hopefully you'll take this in the spirit that it's intended, but a little bit of Aykroyd and Hartman-esque qualities too.
I love hearing that. That's exactly, that's like, you know, I could spout off a list of 25 SNL people that I am trying to do, that I'm trying to be. But I would definitely put Hartman and Aykroyd as like up there towards the top of like who I would be drawing from, or who I feel like I naturally am.
Well, let me ask you this: on the impression side, if we could, if Biden were to win the upcoming election and continue serving as president, is that role, the Biden role, something that you would want to get back into after the election?
Oh, I'd for sure do it again. I mean, those kind of conversations are probably ongoing, even as we speak. So I can't speak to what any of them are thinking about it. But I definitely love doing Biden. You know, like I feel like when I got to the show and they were like, do you want to give Biden a shot? I just gave it my best shot at that time. And over the course of the years, I have done it more and more in my stand-up and found more how I like to do it. Because it was just like an impression I had just tried out a couple times, like on my old podcast and stuff. And so I was just doing my first draft because they asked for it. And I was like, let's say yes to everything and see what this adventure holds. And I think, I just like my Biden more these days. And so I've just kind of never stopped doing it on stage. And I'll make an Instagram video every once in a while of me doing something with it. So if it came back, that'd be a lot of fun. Obviously Trump is like my signature character or whatever. So that's the one that is like, that's the one that is like always kind of ready to go. If a fan runs up to me and is like, hey, my buddy loves your Trump, can you just send him a little video? Like, I'll just shoot it off immediately. But pretty much every other, that's not an open invitation, by the way. Please do not accost me while I'm playing.
Yeah, I was gonna. But can I jump in there, James? Because I just want to ask you, like, you know, obviously the news, you know, in real time right now, recent conviction, upcoming presidential debates, there's like a lot of stuff that's happening to a historical figure in Trump, you know, in these unprecedented times over the summer, and SNL's off. So is it difficult being away from the show for the summer, knowing how much is going to be going on leading into the election cycle in the fall?
You know what? I really love being on the show, and I really love doing the show. And I really love sleeping and getting rest and sitting in a chair. I would say that at this age, I maybe even love them both equally. And I will get sick of sitting in a chair in the summer at some point. And right now I'm really enjoying sitting in a chair. So even with Trump being convicted and And what's SNL going to do with this? It's like, I'd love to be up there trying it out if we were in season, but honestly, I also like sitting in a chair. So I'm I'm enjoying the rest, but I'm sure there's going to be even more craziness next year. I mean, who knows what'll happen?
Yeah.
There's always this moment where you're like, how do we rise to the occasion with a news story, especially with the Trump stories, because expectations can be really high. And for me, my move with Trump has always been to be a weirdo. Like, my whole thing with Trump is like that he's a weirdo. And so that's how I play Trump. And the other day when the verdict came in and I was just sort of checking out Twitter a little bit, I was like, I should probably make a video. That'd be fun. And people would think it's funny. And I was like, well, what of this story am I going to talk about? And I'm like, well, nobody. No, I mean, we've been talking about Stormy Daniels for years. Like, I don't think there's any meat left on the bone of talking about Trump and porn stars.
Right.
So I was like, what would James Austin Johnson do as Trump on his Instagram? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to talk about that maybe he got thrown out of Buca di Beppo for trying to take the frame photos down from the men's restroom. So as soon as I had that idea, that's just what, because I care less about satirizing, I guess, specifically the news when it comes to Trump, and I care more about the music of his voice and his like mood and attitude. And so I really enjoy abstracting.
That shows up as the joy, like there's joy in delivering that.
And he's having fun. I don't know if you've watched Trump talk, but he really enjoys talking and joking around and stuff. And I'm just kind of trying to replicate the spirit he has when he's talking about windmills and water faucets. And like I think his fans just like him a lot more than they like what he's talking about. He really only is talking about like the border and the things that people whoop for like 30 seconds in one of those 4-hour speeches. The rest of the time he's talking about like the free trade agreements and like that water faucets don't work and like sharks and whales and all this like nonsense that he finds really interesting. Like, that's what he's focused on. So I just try to talk about some nonsense that I'm thinking about that day. And for whatever reason, it was Buca di Beppo.
I do want to ask you, one big point of discussion on the podcast this season is political material and how SNL uses your impressions in cold opens as, direct to camera versus something we saw in old eras of the show, which were more scenes that we were set up as like a POV of the audience, where the character or the political impression is interacting with the other people in the administration. Is that something that you would like to do more moving forward? Because I could tell you, as listeners of the show, a lot of people seem to feel that that's something the show has moved away from and something that they should go towards more in the future, which is seeing like you as Trump interacting with, let's say it's a Mikey Biden, but, interacting in a scene as opposed to you both talking directly to the audience.
Right. I mean, for one thing, politicians and how the media cover politicians has changed over the last few decades. And now, especially with these guys being super old, like now that politicians are super duper old, their media appearances are very tightly controlled. And like, obviously Trump is an uncontrollable figure, so he just sort of appears throughout the news day, all over the place. But he tightly controls it too. He has to have like 20 American flags behind him. There have to be curtains. There have to be like smiling dock workers behind him with the hats on. Like, he's very controlled in how he presents himself. And Biden's the same way too. Biden doesn't really talk for very long when he makes appearances. There are certain things like that where I can see that, they just, the media has changed so much, so it changes how presidents are presented in media. And I think that maybe SNL reflects that a little bit, where we do a lot of straight to camera presentational stuff, because that's how we see these guys being presented. We're just sort of doing how they appear on television, because our show is kind of a parody of television, a parody of media.
Right.
So that's a visual language that SNL does really well, the straight to camera address. I would love to check out
I'll say
more
just judge that
scenes.
the Gillis episode this year where you guys did where you were playing Lindsey Graham and you were all sitting in a booth talking about your like admiration of Trump, but like, do you really admire him? I think that is the type of thing that I'm talking about here, where a lot of the fans are looking for that. So sorry, please continue.
Something that it's more of an SNL sketchy vibe over a like a Downey cold open. Daryl is Dick Cheney looking in the camera kind of thing. Yeah, I think I'm an actor, and I've been an actor for a long time, so I really love doing scenes and scene work. Obviously, that's really fun to me. But as you can see on the show, I also have a lot of fun being game show hosts. So maybe that influences why we would do a lot of Biden's that way or a lot of Trump's that way. With Trump, it's also like, it doesn't sound like Trump unless he is talking without being cut off for like 3.5 minutes straight. So maybe that is why,
part,
people really like how Alec did it, and I'm trying to do something different from what Alec did. So I feel like Alec did a lot of those scenes and a lot of those ensemble pieces, and so maybe they're just trying something different with my Trump, to make it distinct. I'm not really sure, but
fair enough.
I would play more cold open scene type things. That's always fun.
Let me ask you this: the final episode of the season, it ended with a Snake Eyes sketch,
yes,
which really felt like a throwback character piece, and perhaps a great jumping off point, for you into the next season. So, just curious, how did that really materialize?
Oh man, Snake Eyes is crazy. So that voice is, you hear a little bit of that voice in my Lindsey Graham, but that voice is my mom. That's an impression of my mom. My mom is always saying, "Cool it and knock it off," and "Can we not?" And it was something that I auditioned for the show with, was like, I would do the sweet Southern guy who was in the Trench Coat Mafia, this really dark bit where I'm a sweet Southern guy who was friends with those murderers or whatever. So his nonchalant momish way of being, can we not kill a bunch of people like that? It's always been, what's the discordant thing I can take that guy who is so sensitive and caring and darling and put him in a dark situation or something like that. So I've been pitching that character at the table ever since I got there, and we've done it in so many different places. That we did it as a Star Trek a few times, where I was the captain of a Star Trek where everyone was from Knoxville, Tennessee. We tried it. I tried it as like a CIA terror analyst on Weekend Update, as a guy who talked like that, talking about like the Houthi rebels. So like, I've tried it in so many different ways, and it was like a cast favorite. It was like the table really liked that character, and they were like, one of these days you're going to find the way that it all comes together. And Snake Eyes was just, Sarah and Andrew had the idea, and they came to me, and we jammed it out immediately. And that was just kind of me. And it was, I don't know, like, let's take that little guy and make him look like Lemmy from Motorhead, and try to see what it looks like if he is trying to kick Jake Gyllenhaal's ass. And it was just sort of this fun, easy thing that Sarah and Andrew and I put together on the Tuesday night writing night, and it came together really fast just because it was like, we all knew the character at that point. We were like, oh, he'd probably do this, he'd probably do this. And it's just a shame that America didn't get to see his little dance. We had before we dueled, we had a little dance where Jake and I did a little Tin Pan Alley little dance at each other before the fight began. And of course, it was a 10-1. When you're in that last spot, you gotta throw out 2 pages from the script to make sure that it gets on TV. And that was the best final sketch of the season I could possibly ask for. We still weren't sure going into it if it was going to get in, and then it was in, and I'm just running down the hallway, taking off my pants from the last thing, and getting into Lemmy, and now everyone gets to see Snake Eyes. So that's
that had to feel good to end the season that way.
It was a nice way to end, and you just hope you get lucky with something like that, and you hope that the dress audience likes it enough that it sends it over the finish line, and it did better live than it did at dress. So that's as good as you can.
That's the way you want it. Yeah. So hopefully we get to see more Snake Eyes coming up next year, and obviously really looking forward.
He's dead, so
reincarnated.
He'll have to Book of Boba Fett himself, out of the grave or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do in season 50. Obviously, you're going to be like on the marquee of big names that we're going to see coming up, and with all the crazy things that are going to happen throughout this big anniversary season. So, so grateful for your time today, and I also want to just give you an opportunity to plug your shows that you're doing this summer, because I know you're going out with 2 other cast members, and this is going to be fantastic.
I am on tour with Andrew Dismukes and Devin Walker. It's a summer jobs tour. We're doing like 15 or 16 shows, going to a few different cities. I hope any of the Saturday Night Network listeners who want to see 3 SNLers for the price of 1, they should show up. They should support, because we're all going to do some time. And I think, on some of those late shows, we might have time for some Q&A. That would be cool. But, if you come, we're going to sell a hat. I'm going to have something to sign for you. I might have some totes left from my last stand-up tour. So, come say hi at the merch stand, and we can get a picture and, talk about whatever. And before I go, okay, someone's in line behind you. You need to wrap it up.
Before that happens.
No, please come to a live show this summer, and I'm doing some solo dates too. I'm doing a weekend at the Zanies in Nashville. My hometown show will be in August. I'm doing an improv in Tempe. So if you just go to my link tree, you go to my Instagram or my Twitter, that's Shrimp Jadge. I'm going to change that soon. My agency has requested that I change that. And as soon as I can think of something that makes sense, James Austin Johnson
should we
doesn't
pull
fit.
The listeners to try and see if we can come up with something?
If you want to unsolicited, I guess this is solicited now, send me over DM your suggestion for what my social media handle should be. I would love to hear your suggestion.
Buca de
Beppo Jadge.
Yeah.
Snake Eyes Jadge. Cool it Jadge. Knock it off Jadge.
Cool it, I love it.
What's my Trump catchphrase in terms of Jadge and with regard to Jadge?
All those are great options.
Yeah. All right.
We'll get that to you. So seriously, Jadge, thank you so much for your time today. So grateful for it all, and the fans love you on the show. So looking forward to catching up with you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your support.
And there it is. Conversation with Jadge. Seriously, I'm blown away. Like, you never know how the interviews are going to go, how much they're going to give us. And I'm so thankful for him to just open up, tell us about all the things that's been going on in his life, and how he feels about doing the show. Like, that is as raw as it gets, to really get to know an SNL cast member and talk about the psychology that goes into producing the show and everything. So fascinating interview with Jadge here today. James, did you enjoy talking to him?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like he had a good time. I believe he enjoyed talking through, reminiscing, recollecting, his what's going on in his life as he was auditioning for the show throughout. A show week is crazy, so his memory of it and just sort of to describe those things, and his just love for the show and some of those former cast members and how they're all sort of have this gravitational pull towards each other over the years is really pretty special and unique. And to hear him talk about it was really killer.
And I find it super fascinating that, we evaluate the show to death. We talk about every sketch, every moment on the show, and we always have these questions and wonder, what they're thinking on the inside. And I think for somebody like James Austin Johnson, he is, the guy that's, like he said, going 100 miles an hour all the time. There's something always happening to him. So he doesn't necessarily always get the time to be retrospective and think about his time at the show. And I thought that he was super thoughtful today. And again, really grateful for all the times that we got to talk to him. I hope to do it again sometime soon, because I'm sure that he would love to talk about more moments in his SNL career. I think he's going to be there a long time.
And as he said, John, I hope that there's a lot of folks listening that will be able to follow the tours this summer, whether it's his single tours or the ones with Andrew and Devin. Is going to be just a great summer of getting out there, seeing some stand up. And as he said, he suggested to stick around at the end of some of those late shows and get an autograph. So just a great guy.
Absolutely. I could tell you personally that I've been to one of his shows. He came up to Montreal a couple of years ago, got to see him in person, and he was awesome. So if he's coming to a city near you or not, or maybe you want to make a trip this summer and go see him and Andrew and Devin, make sure to go do that. So sincere thank you to Jaj for joining us today, and also to our friends at NBC for coordinating the interview. Appreciate you all over there as well. Of course, also want to thank our presenting partner for the show today, and that would be latenighter.com, who helps us produce all of our podcasts over here. So let's talk about what's coming up here on the SNN this week. So obviously, closing the book here on season 49, we have a couple of really fun things that are happening throughout the summer. One will be a host countdown. So we did the greatest cast members of all time all last summer and fall. We're going to be counting down the greatest hosts of all time every single Monday. We'll be live with you to do that. So that's a fun summer thing, just to think about some Saturday Night Live history and, do some stuff at a little appetizer for season 50. But every Thursday this summer, we're going to have some fun, because we're going to be posting some videos that James and myself and some people here behind the scenes, and Ellis and Matt and Cameron, we've all been working on a series called Everything You Need to Know About Saturday Night Live. And tomorrow night, James Stephens, we're premiering season 1. So what can the listeners expect when they see this on our YouTube channel tomorrow night?
I am just so excited for the release of this, because it's really a party. I mean, it's a celebration. I mean, this is how we're, I don't know if it's counting down the 50 years, but there are 50 episodes coming your way starting tomorrow night, as John alluded to with our first episode, which is all about season 1. And so there's going to be 50 of these that are going to take you through the entire season. It's everything you need to know about season 1 this week, next week, season 2. It's the sketches, it's the characters, it's the backstage stories. It's all those things that chronicle SNL and really the show's place as a television institution. That is what brought you here as a listener right now, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm so excited to share this with people. I know that there's a lot of amazing books and amazing documentaries and even interviews with people that have been behind the scenes or in front of the camera talking about their time at the show. This is a little bit different. It's really compact. So I know people are watching things, that are shorter now, and they want to, find out about the years of history. We talk about it on the podcast every single day. So you're like, how can I catch up? I don't really have time. This is the way to do it. It's, watch it, find out. And then if you want to dive deeper, there are some amazing resources out there. You can either listen to other podcasts that dive into individual episodes, or you can watch the episodes themselves. We'll also do some recommendations about sketches you need to watch on social media. So all of that is coming up starting tomorrow night. We got season 1 this week, season 2 next week. So we're going to get rolling on all of this. And I would love to get your feedback. Make sure to comment on the videos that we post, and let us know today what you thought of the James Austin Johnson interview. Maybe he'll check it out. Maybe he'll read your comments and see what you thought of the interview and how what he said over here. So leave your comments below on the video, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast to never miss an episode we're producing, whether it's interviews, those video series, or other podcasts we have going on. You can subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and find everything we're doing on social media. Search at the SNL Network, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok for all of that. So as we close the book on season 49, just want to put a huge thank you to everyone who contributed to all the shows this year, all the podcasters, all the patrons who supported the show, and all of the listeners, whether I talk to you every day or you just gave us a thumbs up on one video. Can't do this without you. So thank you all so much for everything you contributed to the SNN this season. So James, thanks so much for helping out with the interview today. Really appreciate it.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. For James Stephens and James Austin Johnson, we will see you next time. Have a good one.